podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Cardiff Central podcast. After a few fallow weeks for international rugby, we're back as Cardiff get going again in the United Rugby Championship at home to Leicester on Friday night. We'll preview that one as well as looking back on Wales' Six Nations so far, a visit to Rag's Corner and covering all the latest news out of the Arms Park. Joining me on the podcast this week, we've got Frazier Stroud. Fraser, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Not too bad.
And Harley Worthy. Harley, how are you?
Yeah, all good, mate.
Good stuff. Right, we shall crack into some international action, then get it out of the way. The sort of the sideshow to the main event, of club rugby returning this weekend. Wales, of course, had 3 games on the bounce with this new Six Nations structure. They've lost 48-7 to England, 12-54 to France, and then the narrow 23-26 defeat against Scotland on the weekend. Fraser, what have we made of Wales' campaign generally so far?
I mean, it's not been great. Obviously, the last game is the best game we played. I think I can guess we have been seeing progress week by week. I mean, the England game was an absolute, less said about that the better. It was like nothing went right at all. So that was quite depressing. And then the France game, I weirdly came out of that feeling quite upbeat, even though you got absolutely battered. I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's expectations, and France are fucking amazing. So it was quite a fun game to watch as well. It was just like crazy rugby. So again, we looked a bit better, and then obviously in Scotland, it was kind of inevitable we were going to lose that, even when we were in that position of such strength. But again, we looked better, and particularly in our set piece. I think the line out and the scrum looked. Obviously, we got that scrum penalty at the end against us, but generally speaking, I think our set piece has looked more solid, and you can build a lot off that, I suppose. So I feel quite pleased with that. I think like the return of Thomas Francis probably made a big difference there. But yeah, I mean, our attack still looks a bit shoddy, and I mean, after a couple of phases, we kind of lose kind of a bit of impetus. And I'm not sold on Zamet as 15, to be honest. I think he's quite a massive liability. I mean, I don't know don't pretend to be a tactical expert in rugby. I'm sure Harley would have more of an insight than I do, but I just feel like he's not the right person to be a 15. And the guy who's played a couple of games for Bristol is then drafted in as our starting international 15. He's had a massive layoff doing American football. I just think that's like a position you need to know what you're doing and be in the right places and kind of play as a team player as opposed to an individual. And I think there's a little bit of that causing issues with our back, like our defence off first phase has obviously been shocking. But yeah, overall it's been a progression each game, looking a bit better, but like I'm not hugely confident that we'll be better still next game. I'm not sold yet on where we're going. That's kind of just my little overview of how those games went for me.
I like the idea of Zamet coming back from NFL, having done like punt returning over there, and then he gets put in at fullback and sort of going, why aren't they just kicking the ball directly to me? And why are these people trying to challenge me? And why can't I just catch it fair and nobody get anywhere near me? Harley, obviously, giving your thoughts on Rap this week, but give us a brief summary of what you thought of Wales over the last few weeks as a whole.
So starting off, England game just utterly disappointed, really. All the positives, the awesome seemed to be completely washed away. It seemed like Tandy completely changed his mind how he wanted to play. France game, I was a little bit better. I felt they'd sorted some of the issues out, particularly set piece. But, it was just the chronic thing of, if there's any team you don't want to make silly mistakes because you're trying to learn a new shape, it's France. Because they're very good. You might have noticed they're quite good at returning the ball back when you kick loosely to them. And in the Scotland game, it was mostly fine. It was basically the title of the last Rap podcast was, delighted to be disappointed because after all these endless hammerings, it was actually nice to be in a game and being frustrated that we didn't manage to see the game out to the end. So, overall, I agree. Zamet doesn't work at 15. I was not a fan of the experiment anyway. I see why you persist with it for a few games though, because there's no point sticking in once and saying, "Oh well," going through. But when you compare it to the other big experiment we've had in our backline with Eddie James at 13, you can see he's getting better each game, and he's learning how to read that space better. Whereas for Zammit, I feel like the mistakes he was making in the England game, he's still making in the Scotland game. And there's one thing where there was a restart and Finn goes short and Kinghorn reaches it, and Zammit just stands off him. He doesn't do anything to impede him, and he gets through, and then we end up in that pressure. There are other ones where someone put, like a player gets slightly past him. You're thinking you're supposed to be the quickest bloke on this pitch. Bust a gut, get over there. And then, there was that penalty he conceded for a turnover. I know some people saying, well, that's not fair because, didn't actually play out on the ball. It looks more like he just dropped it, which either is not good. And you're thinking, well, he could have passed to Adams a lot sooner than that, or, tried to straighten up and he just basically absorbed all the width. And it didn't work. But I mean, on the plus side, Dav Jenkins, I think, is playing really, really well. He's one of the few people I think has continued on from the autumn. And Dane Carter, I think he's taken his chance with two hands. So that was a good thing.
Yeah, Saturday was so much better, wasn't it, than the previous few weeks? And I do think you don't want to scapegoat anyone. I don't think Dan Edwards had played badly over those first two rounds. I think put that out there that he kicked pretty well and he hadn't made any sort of real shocking errors. What he hadn't done was really got to grips with, I don't think, with what Sherratt wants to do with that attack. And I think Costello coming in just looks like he was a more natural fit to play with a second playmaker at 12. And for a player who hadn't had any minutes at all over the first 2 weeks and has had a lot of stick in his Wales career as well, and yeah, he'll be protected from that a little bit, but I'm sure he'll also be aware of just generally the pressure on that Wales 10 jersey as well. He looked really calm and assured, and it was obviously a massive shame to see him going off, but I hope that the coaches see that it's that type of 10 that I think really needs to get this attack to click. So whether it's a Costello or a Jared Evans now potentially, or whether Sheedy comes in, and I think if he was to be called up after this weekend as a replacement for Costello, I think there's a real interesting conversation to be had about whether he does actually go straight in and start against Ireland there potentially as well. But yeah, I think Edwards looked like a 10 who at Ospreys plays with 12s that are much more head down, arse up in your likes of Kieran Williams. It's an easy out ball. If you're not too sure what you're doing, you just dump it off to the 12, and that at club level, Kieran Williams will probably get you somewhere towards or over the gain line. Whereas in that Sherratt system with the second playmaker at 12, the 10 has to be a lot more flexible. They have to be prepared to go to the line a lot more and make something happen. They have to also be comfortable of saying, I'm going to step out from first receiver, get the 12 in there, get a forward in there and play a little bit wider. And I think Edwards can do all this stuff. We saw him at 20s level. He was a mercurial talent there. He was quick. He was off the cuff. But I think he's obviously had most of his senior career so far of playing with a direct carrying 12 and a quite plan A Ospreys attack, which relies on a good pack and a lot of go forward there, and it's a bit different than when you're playing for a test level team that hasn't got any of that going for you really. So yeah, I thought that was a huge positive on the weekend, and that's something to build on. And that was with, I don't think Joe Hawkins played particularly well on Saturday either. But he didn't have a huge impact on the game, but it didn't necessarily matter too much when you had a 10 that is prepared to take the game a bit more by the scruff of the neck and get his hands on the ball. And then, as Harley says, Eddie James has looked better every week at 13. And I think that you guys had a chat on Rap about it this week about him being a 12. And he reminds me a bit of where Anscombe was a couple of years ago at Cardiff, where Eddie James is our best 12 and probably our best 13 available to us at the moment. And the tricky thing is that the backups at 13 are not at the level of the backups at 12 are. So he has to probably continue playing at 13 at the moment. But yeah, he is undoubtedly our most accomplished all-round centre, I think, available to Wales, even when everybody's back fit at the moment. So just getting him on the ball a lot more, coming shorter, is helped massively over the last 2 weeks. But you don't want to patronise international players and sort of get into a state where you're sort of praising brave losses all the time. But from where Wales were to play like they did on Saturday, it was the most positive I felt about the national team in a good few years. Fraser, I guess maybe that my only slight concern is, we were sitting here similar time last year after Wales played Ireland, where Sherritt came in at home and they gave it a good go, and we were sort of like, it was brave and they did a lot of this well, and that turned out to largely be a sort of one-off, and then we got thumped again the following week. Is there a risk that it was a performance where the crowd were behind them? It was great atmosphere in there. Scotland historically bad in Cardiff, historically bad off the back of a Calcutta Cup as well. Is this Ireland game now going to show us exactly where this Wales team are, do you think?
I do think, like, yeah, it will be maybe a bit chastening, and just like I think we can still build on what we did, and I think we'll lose comfortably. I don't think it will be a close game, especially if after Ireland beat England so emphatically, and I'm doubtful that they would dismiss us and not take us seriously. I think they'll go into that game and probably, yeah, show us a little bit about like where we actually are. We're not, because to be fair, Scotland did like mess up a lot of chances, or like we defended well, scrambled well, but they had so many like line breaks, like really easy line breaks as well, which is that's a big worry. Is that it's just so easy for teams to make massive gains on a defense, and then we can scramble and start, get a turnover. We did that well against Scotland, is like winning the breakdown at times, but I would be worried about that in particular, and Ireland being a bit more clinical and scoring more points against us. So I do think probably next game, I'm not anticipating that we're going to be within a score, a couple of scores. I think it might be a bit more like 20-point loss. But I'm hoping that we can get a few tries and again compete at the breakdown, get those momentum changes, and like show that we're still in the fight, and not let them just steamroller us against like what happened against England in particular, against France. It was a bit more mad shit, but like, yeah, we were never in that game again. So I think, yeah, I'm hopeful, but I also realistic about where we actually are. I think you're focusing on the Italy match, and I think that's definitely a winnable game, and I think we can come out of that with victory.
Yeah, Harley, I don't know if you agree with that. The next game, and what is success for these final two games for Tandy and Wales, do you think?
I think the big thing, it's getting cliched, and I feel really repetitive now, but for me, it's you've got to keep seeing improvements week on week. You've got to see that defense tightening up more. You've got to see the attack clicking more. You want to see that carrying game, that excellent carrying game we had in the first half. We want that to go out, not, last for 60, 70 minutes over the next couple of games, not just stop at half time. I mean, we were talking about like, how good the attack was. It was interesting that I feel like the best attacking set we had on Saturday was when we were down to 14 men, and you effectively had an effective 12-13 of Eddie James and Josh Adams. It's just kind of weird, and again, Eddie James is having a little bit more punch, and I do feel that's something I feel like we were sort of trying to hold the lead a bit too early, to me, and that's in the second half Scotland game. I feel like, and maybe we just need to attack a bit more and actually try. Ireland aren't as imperious as they were. They can be got at. I think it is going to depend on Daddy Faz's selections. On, is he going to go full? Is he going to go right? We've got to take Wales seriously just to put them back in their place, or if he's going to do some rotation like he did with Italy. I think it could be. They showed against England. They do still have performances in them. I don't think I still don't think they're as able to cut a team apart as much as France are, though. So I think that's, I feel like they might, if they're going to try rack a score up against us, there's got to be a physicality thing. In which case, I'm hoping now that we're slowly building towards a pack that can match other teams in that department, at least for the first 60.
Yeah, my hot take on Ireland was that them beating England might actually be great for the further demise of Irish rugby, because it sort of reminded me a bit of Wales and the Pivac those few years ago, where we kept reverting to the experienced guys and getting them back in, and they churn out sort of one big test match performance, and you're like, oh, we should still do this every week, and then you play them every week and like reminded that these are still quite old guys actually, and they can't do this all the time. So Ireland go into Twickenham and like the likes of Gibson Park and that turning out man of the match performances. Obviously, they're always going to have that test level quality, but you just kind of think they can't be producing that week in week out anymore, where the side is aging so much.
It was a bit of a show in that game against Italy where Italy seemed pretty in control until Gibson Park came back on, and it's like, well, what are you going to do when he eventually retires? It's going to happen. It is going to happen.
Yeah. Fraser, obviously Cardiff wise, we've seen a lot of Mann and Adams and then bits and pieces of Belcher, Botham, Ben Thomas, Mason Grady. Nothing of Sam Wainwright yet. Real disappointment there. I think we all thought he was going to be in there. But what have we made of the Cardiff players involved so far?
I'm happy that Alex Mann has kind of they've obviously stuck with him in these games, and he's kind of obviously against Scotland he showed what he can be and what and he has over the autumn obviously he showed that as well, and I'm glad they stuck with him in the face of the England match and the talk about not having big enough players, and there was a lot of questioning of Man and like why is he there, he's too small, all this kind of stuff, and I think he kind of showed people uh, again against Scotland how good he can be. So I was pleased to see that. I think Adams is also. I think he's now re-cemented himself as like a guaranteed starter. I think there was the question mark, especially after that silly red card he did in the autumn. But I think he's just kind of shown how solid he is and so dependable as a good winger. He's not as fast as he used to be, maybe not as impactful, but he is still a quality winger. Good defensively, can make meters. So I think I'm glad to see him kind of yeah go back to being one of the first names on the team sheet. And then in terms of like Belcher, we haven't really seen much from him. Both of them obviously had quite a good game against Scotland. A few turnovers, that was nice to see. And I still feel frustrated with the situation with Ben Thomas. I don't know. It's just because we've seen how good he can be for us, and we haven't seen that for Wales. So I can there hasn't been a game where you've really people have been able to see it. It's a shame that obviously again after the England game he's not back in the team, wasn't given another chance. Which I think, like you said, Joe Hawkins wasn't great against Scotland. It's not like he's like playing incredibly well and doing things that Ben Thomas can't do. But I think there's just maybe people aren't being patient with Ben Thomas. Now he's had quite a few caps down. I'm worried these might not get that chance again, which would be really sad because he's a brilliant player. So yeah, I guess that's my kind of overview of the players, and obviously, yeah, Wainwright's gonna start against Ireland and get man of the match performance.
Harley, we had a comment in from Rob on Twitter who said that Maurice Carey's performances have made him loathe Gatland even more. Is that just like a source of great frustration when we watch him do what we always thought he could do at test level for Wales when he was at Cardiff?
It's one of those ones, isn't it? It's how many, we're talking about giving Eddie James and Louis Zammit time to learn the position, and Carey was one of those players who we just never really gave that much chance. He probably had two goes off the bench. I think there was one start during the COVID Cup, and Andrew Porter spent the whole time like physically pulling his arm down, and the ref and it got away with it, and the ref only it was only when the ref went to the other side he pinged him for it, and you're just like, maybe he should have persevered. I think they were so obsessed with what he couldn't do. There was very little thinking of what he can do. And I think it was very much with Gatland's style that he wanted his props to be basically he wanted them to tackle and hit rucks. And obviously that's not really Carey's game, although he did some good ruck clearances over the last few games. But if you give him, let him have a bit of a trot and then give him the ball, he makes holes or he pulls in a few defenders, and it just and loads of people kept coming back with the thing of, oh well, we had two Wales coaches who didn't fancy him, and I went, yeah, those same two Wales coaches didn't fancy Nicky Smith. You keep putting him in your fucking team, so like balance it up. Just accept you just don't like him, but yeah, I think he's shown well. I'd like to see a bit more of it. I'd like to see him hit 60 minutes. I don't know if necessarily he was crashed out at 43. I felt he still had a chance to have an impact. And, it's just him backing it up. But again, I think these have been certainly France game when he when he played as well, he was making some dents as well. I think it's the best I've started seeing him in a Wales jersey. As for other Cardiff players, I mean, James Botham just proves you don't need Tommy Reffel to have a jackal threat. You can have a jackal threat who also carries tackles and jumps in the line out if you need him to. And I've been banging this drum on Frazier. For me, Botham is probably the closest we have to Jack Morgan in terms of a like for like player. And I just think it's just so mad. And as much as I love Alex Mann, I don't see him as an open side. Stick him on. He's got potential to be a fantastic blindside. I reckon a few more kilos on him, and he's going to be a proper arsehole for other teams. And I know Steve of this parish, just loves him almost like a son. But yeah, it's just said, it's just weird how Tandy sort of almost stumbled on a very good balanced back row now.
Yeah, it's that balance that's the key, isn't it? I think it's interesting to talk about man and open side, and there's a lot of comments online that, particularly after last week, I think people felt there wasn't enough jackal threat, and that we need to be picking an open side who does have that, and man isn't that. And I just kind of thought we've just come off like a decade of Justin Tipuric playing open side, who was never the jackal threat really. He's never been the guy who gets over the ball, and it was always that balance with a Warburton at 6, or in the latter years like Navidi coming in and doing that similar job. That's where the sort of threat over the ball comes from, and that balance is so key. And yeah, perhaps by luck more than judgment, with both of them coming on early, and it was a shame because Plumtree actually had a couple of nice moments in the first 10 minutes or so. But yeah, that Botham man Wainwright back row looked super effective on Saturday, and Botham it's a cliche statement, and it doesn't mean that he doesn't play well for us either, but he appears to be like that proper test match animal guy who you think he's like at 100% for Cardiff and playing well, and then he just goes to another level again when he steps up to the test match. He is a really fantastic player, and but for injuries, I think he would be absolutely nailed on in that back row every time. And it's almost like we have to go through a process if he gets injured, doesn't play for a bit, and then we have to remember that he's good again before we get him back in. Just a quick note on the 20s as well, who've obviously been playing over the last few weeks. They lost 19-16 to England, 24-34 to France, and then beat Scotland 31-21 on Friday. A load of Cardiff players been involved, particularly along that back line. Fraser, I don't know if you've seen too much. What have we made of particularly the young Cardiff lads there who've garnered a lot of plaudits so far?
Well, I've watched them all, and I really think we should be 3 from 3 after watching those games, because the England game we really threw that way. It was like, and it's like those in the past when you've seen them play England, France, and we drop off. It's usually because we've been overpowered, or we just like they've got more depth than we have, and we're not there yet. It's really felt in those England France games that we just made some really silly basic errors. So that pass against England, it was like a clear. I think it was Josh and Darwin Lewis with that pass that just wasn't accurate enough, and that was just a walk-in try. I think we would have won that game. Against France, I don't remember exactly what the errors were, but there were just a couple of things that if they'd got them right or hadn't made those silly errors, we would have gone on to win, because I just don't think for England and France were that ahead of us, really. I think we could be a better team than them. And then in terms of the Cardiff players, there's obviously Tom Howe is an absolute freak, because like this, his body looks mad, and he's just a huge bastard. He makes meters every time. He's an unbelievable player. I haven't seen many like players like that in our under-20s before. And then Stefan Manuel's been immense, absolutely immense at 12. Like he's just really quality. I'm excited to see him kind of come back to Cardiff and get more game time, because he's really really great. I think. So it's Sean Davis is the scrum half, is that right? He's looked pretty solid, and then obviously like Tom Byrne we already know he's brilliant. But yeah, so I've been really impressed and like quite excited about what's to come. It feels like we've got quite a lot of depth as well. Even those people coming off the bench have looked pretty good, and I have confidence in them. It's not like there's this massive drop off, and we seem to have quite a big kind of powerful team as well. We don't seem to be like overpowered by these teams that usually you would say, okay, yeah, we can't compete with that. I feel like we have been, and it is a bit of a shame that we're only 1 from 3, where it should, I think, it could be 3 from 3 and on for a Grand Slam. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it. I've been impressed and excited about how things are going to be moving forward.
Harley, have you seen much of the 20s? If
Yeah,
not,
yeah, I've been watching it. I mean, I'll be honest, it's been a salve for dealing with the seniors, to be honest. Yeah, I think Fraser's right. I think our 13s, like both 13s from Cardiff, have been in. So Oshindonu's and Wilcott. Is it Wilcott?
Bailey cut.
Bailey cut. Yeah. I was just thinking of will he cut the line at the penalty, but that was it then. Yeah, I think they've been playing really well and shown up. I think the thing for Steph Emanuel as well, that yes, his playmaking and like some of the kicks out of hand he's been asked to do, which isn't too much to be fair. It's his physicality. He's actually, he's busting through gain lines, and you're looking at it and going, "Oof, that's what we want. That's the ideal of what we want for our 12. That's what we're trying to make turn Jacob Beetham into, though he just never gets a chance. So he's always playing 13, 15, 12, and everything else. So yeah, it's been pretty good. I thought Young Gwyn, the captain, he's been doing really well, and once again, Scarlet's, the talents they develop, they can't keep hold of, and then they end up having to go elsewhere to find them back. I thought it was a good. I did feel slightly sorry for Tom Cottle on the weekend though, because was it Dave Rogers is there talking about saying, oh well, he's going to want to make amends for the red card he gave in this fixture last year, and then first thing that happens is the lineup goes right in between his hands and his head, and you're just like, ah. I mean, I put that on the hooker's throw, to be honest, because he's in the correct position and the ball just sort of sails here. But yeah, it was just like, oh, for God's sake, that's proper commentator's curse right there.
No, I highlighted Reece Cummins as well at fullback, who he's only first year into senior rugby this year. Merthyr lad who was at Cardiff Van Zyl College, but for those who watch the Rags a bit more regularly, that might remember the Carmarthen game on telly at the start of the season, and he had a bit of a stinker there. Like it was like a welcome to senior rugby moment. But you look at him. He's been back in the team a little bit more with the Rags since then, and he looks like he's picked it up very quickly playing at that level. And I thought he's looked really composed at a full back in some tough games. Well, I mean, that game at Northampton, that weather looked absolutely awful that night up there, and it was pretty windy on Friday as well at the Arms Park for the Scotland game. But yeah, he's dealing well with little kicks through, and his link-up play with Sean Davis, I think it was the first try against France, where Cummins makes a break on the outside, and then Davis is back on hand for the offload inside. That was a really nice score, which hopefully we'll see plenty of at Cardiff over the coming years. Cool. That's international stuff rounded up then for now. Obviously, fallow week for them this weekend. Their one and only week off before they're back in action against Ireland in the round 4, and then Italy on the weekend of Super Saturday. Moving on to news then from the Arms Park over the last few weeks, been a fair bit. It wasn't actually that much until about the last day or two, really, and quite a lot has happened in the last 48 hours. So I think the big one was that Rugby Pass reported yesterday that Benetton, they reported that have interviewed Corniel Van Zyl for their head coach job, which is becoming available at the end of the year when their current head coach, I think he's going to Newcastle as an assistant coach. Yeah, they said there was a three-man shortlist, which was Jake White, formerly of the Bulls. It was, I think they mentioned Richard Cockrell was the other one in there as well, and then Corniel Van Zyl. So good company for Van Zyl, certainly a tick in the box for him. He said in his press conference today, though, his quote was, "I love Cardiff. I don't want to move anywhere else at the moment. At this moment in time, we will see what happens. Hopefully, we'll have more clarity soon." It's not true that I've had an interview with them, Benetton, but I have had some conversations with people at the club, and that's basically it. So I think for context, he was a player there for 8 years, a coach for 2 years, so he's obviously got long-standing relationships there. And then from Cardiff perspective, he is interim head coach at the moment, and I guess there's a big question mark around whether we're in a position to sign a head coach up long term at the moment with all that's going on off the field with ownership changes, etc. But Fraser, I guess I guess the question is for Cardiff fans to consider whether directly linked to this or not. But if you were in charge at the moment, would you be trying to tie him down to a long-term deal, or do we think he is interim and that maybe there might be better options out there?
It's yeah. I was kind of debating this. I mean, he's obviously this season has gone really well so far. I think the second half of the season is going to be the real test of his coaching ability and kind of where he's at and where we're at. But I do like the idea of continuity because we just had so much flux. So it's like I would probably vouch for him to stay if you can get him to stay for another year or like something like that. Maybe not like a 6 year long term thing or whatever, but like I would try and keep him around for another year probably or another season because I think getting another coach in or as a new style of play because Corniel Van Zyl's obviously kind of continuing what Jockey put in place and putting his own um, imprint on it. But I think there's that continuity there, and I'd like to, it's working. So it's like, I think it would be, I would advocate for him getting some more time, and I'd try, if I was the owner, to try and persuade him to stay around for another season at least before going on to elsewhere if he wanted to, or seeing how that goes. Because I don't know who else would want to join Cardiff based on what's going on and kind of like how do you persuade someone to come along when so much flux and so many kind of question marks around what's going on in Welsh rugby. So yeah, I'd probably advocate trying to make him stick around for a bit longer.
Harley, I don't know if you've got any strong thoughts either way on Van Zyl and his continuing at Cardiff as head coach.
When you consider like just how much work he's done turning Cardiff into that joke, from that joke of with tarty backs and an open side and very little up front, he's given us some actual grit up front. And the question is, can he go for more of that? Does he get better? With a net attacking, if we get an attack coach in, does that step us up a level, or do we do stagnate? I mean, for me personally, especially with like some of the talk about like players coming and going and all the stuff the Ospreys, I'm just thinking, can I really be dealing with yet another reset?
Yeah.
We got basically had like 2 years of Mulvihill, then it was 2 years of 2 years of Dye, then it was we've had Jockey for 2 years, now we've had one of got a Van Zyl, and it's like, can we just have some stability, please? Just let's see like how well we can do instead of like getting to the point where we're finally competing for playoffs. Or we're in a position where we could be in the playoffs. But whisper it. We could try for a home knockout. Like it's not infeasible. It's unlikely, but it's not infeasible. And now, and then you're thinking, well, next season, you want to be looking definitely getting that, and then we're resetting again, and then we're all of a sudden we're right back down the bottom of the table because we've got a complete new squad, new coach, new game plan, and I just like, overall, I think Van Zaal's clearly made some mistakes that someone who's first time head coach would make, but he seems to learn from it quickly. And overall, we've been doing well. And as I said, the big thing is he's toughened up that soft underbelly we've been perennially having. So I'd like him to stay for a bit longer. Let's see, let's see what a proper Corniel Van Zyl Cardiff looks like.
I did a quick poll on Twitter from the podcast account, which I left it a bit late in the day and on a working afternoon, so it's not a massive sample size, but it came back as 63% would like to keep him and 37% wouldn't, which I think would probably be broadly right, somewhere between 60-40 and 70-30 in favour of him staying would be how I'd assess the Cardiff supporters' sort of take on Van Zyl at the moment. And yeah, like I don't think any of us are like 100% sold on him as head coach, but the points are right that we can't be starting again. And if you lose Van Zyl, you're looking for this summer all of a sudden an attack coach, a head coach, and a forwards coach. Whereas at the moment, you're only really looking for a forwards coach to come in. And that we're only 3 years on from that spot where Sherritt came in with like 8 players. We were still early in this rebuild, so to have a whole new coaching staff does set us back. So yeah, I think I concur that it would be like if you give him, if he's happy with a 1 year but maybe like a 2 year deal or something just to see where we are in that at that point. it gives the squad some stability. It gives the young players coming through some stability as well. So that then in 2 years you could sort of say to him, these players have come through now, but we're not too sure if you are the coach to take us on. So at that point, then you bring somebody else in and try and kick on again. But yeah, it is. I think it's just sort of overall reflective of the general limbo the club finds itself in at the moment, with no long-term view on where we're going ownership-wise, or where Welsh rugby's even going at that point. So we shall wait and see on that one. But his comments certainly seem to suggest that he would like to stay, and that if it was offered to him, that he would. And this Benetton thing is, it's an attractive job. There's a lot of money there. There's a good squad there, certainly. But yeah, you can see the other names being linked to it, and it's going to be one that's in demand. Player movement wise, then we've had a little bit over the last few weeks as well. So one confirmation is that Ben Donnell is going to leave the club at the end of the season to go to Ulster. It turns out he is Irish qualified, so he's heading over there to give that a go. And then a couple of rumours on both incomings and outgoings. So Wales Online have run two stories today. One, that Corey Domachowski is possibly being lined up by the Scarlets to go there. And the other is that La Rochelle are sniffing around Tom Bowen. Probably not a surprise that he's suddenly in demand after his performances this season. Incoming wise, then I think we might have mentioned it on the pod briefly before, but Christian's the rumours about him coming to Cardiff don't go away, and I think since we've last recorded, Rob Baxter has pretty much confirmed that he's on the way out of Exeter. Certainly, where his destination is, they didn't say. And Wales Online also ran that Jared Evans is being looked at as a possible returner to Cardiff this summer, as his Harlequins contract comes to an end. Fraser, what stands out there for you?
I mean, I would be excited. Yeah, Chunza coming in. I think if he can stay injury free, I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'd be his flexibility in the pack is really would be a boon. That'd be good. I think Jared Evans. I love Jared Evans, but I'm not sure where he'd fit in necessarily unless we're losing some people that we don't know about. So you got Harry Wild and like Lloyd Lucas is like the youth, and you don't want to. If you got Jared Evans in there with Sheedy and Ewan Lloyd, it's kind of there's a backlog a bit. But I do love Evans. He's a great player. And then Domachowski, it would be a shame to see him go. I'd like him to stay, especially given that Byrne doesn't exist, so we we kind of need him still. We've got a good variety in the at loose head, but I think he's great on his day. He's a great player, so would advocate for him sticking around instead of going off to the Scarlets. But he hasn't had a huge amount of game time this season, so maybe I can see why he might want to go somewhere he's guaranteed to start a bit more. And yeah, Ben Dolga leaving is sad, but yeah, fair enough. He wants to try and get in the Irish team, then go for it.
Harley, I don't know if you've got any strong thoughts on any of the linked or departures.
Uh, I said, I mean, losing Donald will be a bit of a shame, but I mean, if we link to someone like Christians, then it kind of makes sense. You're sort of going for a more quality option. Although Chun's has had some proper injury rows at Exeter, and he struggled to get into that team where I think he's been seen sort of more as a back row. But I think when you watch him play for Wales, I think second row is definitely his position. I think he uses his athletic abilities to be just for top work rate as opposed to explosive carrying or do anything particularly flash. So yeah, so that'd be good, and we're always looking out for second rows. A lot of the other ones, it's just yeah. I mean, until we see signings down on a piece of paper, it's just rumours, and I'll try not to get too excited one way or the other. The Jared one's interesting because I feel like when you've got Sheedy there, you've got Ewan Lloyd, you've got Harry World coming through, Lloyd Lucas. We feel quite stacked there. And is it a case of someone like Sheedy's Sheedy's going, and we're just replacing it, and then there's do you go back to your ex sort of feeling about it as well? Is is he any better? I mean, is he going to be our first choice 12 when he comes back? No. Is he going to be our first choice 10? Well, again, I think it depends if Sheedy's in. So I feel like that their games have very similar limitations as well. So yeah, I think wait until it's actually happened one way or the other, and then I'll probably form more of an opinion.
Yeah, the Domachowski one in particular stinks of an agent plant. Like, I think there's a line in the article that says like Scarlets are interested in him, but no formal offer has been tabled yet. So on what somebody's just said, oh, Domachowski's playing well, or like that, unless it's an agent plant, that's a really wobbly basis for a story. But yeah, I'd hope we kept him as well. Just a bit of experience there. Obviously, Barrett's doing really well in Southworth, but Dom is the elder statesman there. I think he's just great around the place as well. He's obviously a very popular player. But we'll hopefully get some sort of clarity on come-ins and go-ins over the next few weeks. I might do the annual squad report pod next week, where if we've only got Leinster to talk about, just go through the squad as it is and see where we might need to strengthen or otherwise. But it's quite difficult to sort of look beyond like 6 weeks at Welsh Rugby at the moment. And that does lead me on to my final news story, which is the off-field stuff. So obviously nothing to report really from a Cardiff point of view. I think it's all just in limbo with what the Ospreys and Swansea Council and the WRU are doing. Obviously, I think it's been widely reported on not just the sports news, but on basically you can't turn on any news in Wales without seeing Welsh Rugby stuff off field at the moment. But the Y11 bid for Cardiff is still in the exclusivity period. Swansea Council applied for an injunction to stop it, and the WRU told them that it wouldn't be completed until after the Six Nations anyway. In the meantime, then, the Central Glamorgan Rugby Union have called an EGM, which might have some impact on it, but the exact impact on the pro game reshuffle is sort of somewhat murky, I think, depending on how you read the motions and whether their actual driver is to just revert to having more community players on the board and on the council is yeah, I think there's maybe some more underhand stuff there that the professional rugby stuff is covering that this Central Rugby Union, Central Glamorgan Rugby Union are trying to achieve. But as and when there's anything solid to report from a Cardiff perspective, we might spring into emergency pod mode. But it just seems like yeah, very much a case of does this affect us? Well, I'm not sure. We'll wait and see. This is sort of my general view on everything at the moment. That's news. A quick Rags corner then. It's not been a great few weeks results wise for the Rags, it's fair to say, who have played 4, lost 4, and got 0 points in the SRC Cup. They went down 34-5 to RGC, 19-33 to Spewport, 15-7 in Carmarthen, and 19-31 at home to Pontypool. I think that the general approach has been results do not matter from Dan Fisher's point of view over the last few weeks. 7 of the current under-18 squad have played in that time. A bunch of the guys who are part of the wider semi-pro squad and sort of dual registered with local clubs as well, whether it's Glamorgan Wanderers or Rumney, a couple of those guys have been in and had some experience. They've taken the chance to rest and rotate a lot of their primary semi-pro guys, and then obviously all of the under-20s lads have been unavailable as well because they've been with their squad. So it's been very much a case of just giving everyone a bit of a run out. That's now over. No game this weekend. They're back in actual SRC action with the game against Aberavon, the rearranged game, a week Saturday. And then from the pathway, the under-18s completed their campaign while we were off as well. So in the league phase element of it, they won that by absolutely miles. Played 8, won 8, 7 bonus points along the way. And then managed to fall just short in the final against the Ospreys. So it's sort of it's becoming a bit of a thing with Cardiff with the under-18s and the Rags. They sort of dominate everything and have absolutely no trophy to show for it at the end of it because they can't win the crucial games. But yeah, obviously winning that game is not the be-all and end-all for them. And it looks like another very talented group that's coming through. We mentioned Tom Howe and Bailey Cutts there in the Wales under-20s a bit earlier. I mean, the mad thing about both of them is they should have been playing in that under-18 final for us. And there they are, turning out and scoring tries and being impressive for Wales under-20 instead. So,
so should half of the Rags. So
yeah. But I mean,
reason why it messed up a bit there.
Sonny McGay played for the Rags on the Saturday, then played in that under-18 final on Thursday, and played for the Rags again on the following Saturday. So, yeah, we obviously haven't prioritised winning that one necessarily, but it's definitely a very good crop of players on the way through. At this point of the pod then, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, please feel free to like and subscribe to us. If you're, whatever podcast platform you're on, give us a review as well. If you're on YouTube, like the video and subscribe to the channel. The Rap channel's got all the good stuff, all your raps and all the other Welsh sides, the SRC pod, the women's pod's back as well. There's the sister channel, the Global Game Line, which has got stuff from all around the world. What was the message? Lee sent me a message as well to ask if I could plug certain things, but I can't remember exactly what it was now. Oh yes, we've got a shop as well, which the link is down below of the video or the podcast. The tin hat t-shirts in ode to Tony's tin hat conspiracy theories are out. And also keep an eye on the YouTube channel for some new videos going up prior to game weeks, where they'll be having a look at the respective team selections and what you can expect from games coming up on the weekend. Will be features on some clips as well over the next few weeks, I believe. They'll be putting us on YouTube Shorts, and so we'll obviously get our hot takes very, very hot for them. Pump out some absolute pearlers to get the views in. But yeah, plenty of good stuff going up all the time. Right, final part of the podcast, main part of the podcast then. Cardiff are back in action this weekend as the URC is back for one weekend only in the Six Nations Fallow Week. We're playing Leinster Friday night at the Arms Park, a 7 p.m. kickoff. Reminder that has switched forward slightly from the originally announced kickoff time, so it's a bang on 7 o'clock start. Leinster come to us second in the URC. At the moment, they played 11, won 8 and lost 3. Rumours of their demise were greatly over-exaggerated early in the season as they played 10 and won 10 in that last block between the November internationals and the Six Nations. They come to us having beaten us 42-24 in Dublin last season in a sort of similar weekend around the Six Nations. Our last win over them, of course, 29-27 win in January 2022 with that famous Jared Evans kick and the North Terrace opera singer in the background, which hopefully we'll see something similar to that. Squad-wise for them, they've been boosted by the release of Harry Byrne from the Ireland squad and the return to fitness of Robbie Henshaw, Jimmy O'Brien, and Rabah Slimani as well, a prop. So some good names back, but they are missing obviously a lot of players. There's Ryan Baird, Jordan Lama, Paddy McCarthy, Andrew Porter, Hugo Keenan and Jack Boyle on the injury list, and they've still got 16 players that have been retained by the Ireland squad. Harley, I'm going to come to you first on this one because I think, Fraser, we've spoken about it at the end of the last sort of block, but just looking ahead to the rest of the season generally from your point of view from Cardiff, what is reasonable to hope for where we are at the moment, sort of on the edge of that top 4, but maybe looking down a little bit more than up at this point?
I think I think as supporters, it's reasonable to want to be staying in this top 8. I mean, I know I joked about pipe dreams of a home quarter, but it is very much a pipe dream. I mean, if you look at the fixtures we've got 3 home games left. So we've got Leinster coming up, we've got Finisher on Stormers, and then we've got what is weirdly always a tricky one for us, which is when we host Ospreys at home. It's and you think, well, I think I could see two, or maybe three, two wins out there. 3 would be exceptional. But then you look at the away games, and it's the South Africa tour, Glasgow away, who you might have heard are a bit good. And you just think, well, yeah, I said I think we can. I think we definitely stay in top 8. I think we should stay in top 8. I think we should consider it a bit of a letdown season. Especially with like some of the slip, and maybe some of that pay is slipping up against Scarlets and Ospreys over the festive derbies. Probably maybe should have been a bit better. I feel like that Munster game really comes into one of those weird ones where it's like, had Sheedy had his kicking boots, maybe we get a bit more than just the 2 points there. Yeah, I said I think anything less than top 8 finish, I'd be disappointed. If the higher up we can climb. I mean, if we can, I'm happy for us to drop down to 8. That means we'd not go into South Africa again. Like, I'll take the trade off. I'll take 7th or 8th. If it means staying in the UK or Ireland for that. But yeah, than that, and I think we bollocksed up Challenge Cup so much that I'm really not asked about that now.
Focusing on this weekend then, Fraser, Andrew sent a message in saying, with the South Africa tour on the horizon, is Leinster a must win for us?
I mean, it would be. It's a chance, definitely. I think it's like it's not they've got so many players missing, and we obviously quite a few players have been released to us. Or like we've got, I think we can put out quite a good team, and here's a chance to beat them. We beat them in pre-season, so if we're basing it on that, then this will be an easy victory. But yeah, I think it's an important opportunity to get some points. Considering, yeah, we won't have a home game for a while, and we're off to South Africa, so we're going to have a pretty tough period. And Leinster are good; they're on a brilliant run at the moment. But you just got to hope that kind of the fact that they're missing so many key players that, and I think with the returning players and the kind of depth we do have this season compared to last, I think we can challenge them and kind of go for that victory. So yeah, I don't know. It must win. It's hard to say. But it's a very good opportunity, and we should go out there, go into that match looking to get a victory there.
Hey, it's worth saying that, I mean, the final score of 42-24 paints it as quite a heavy loss, but we were in that game in Dublin up until like the sort of 55, 60 minute last year, and we played some really nice stuff. And at the time, I think there was a yellow card, and the squad wasn't quite as deep. The young players were a year younger than they are now. But with the players being released back to us as well, then yeah, you'd like to think that we can convert 55, 60 minutes into 75, 80 minutes and really give a good go of that against Leinster on Friday. Harley, I think what we see quite a lot from Cardiff in these games where it's not part of a block, it's just like you pop in for one or two games. We often end up talking about, there's ring rust at the start of games to shake off and we don't start them particularly well. What can we do to actually start this one quite well on the weekend? Because I feel like if you give Leinster a 20-minute head start, you probably don't get back into that.
I mean, if you look at the last few games against Leinster, it's basically if you take out that first 20-minute block, we're either very competitive or we probably should have won. And yeah, I mean for me the answer would have been play friendly or something in like the week before. But that doesn't seem to be the route going. I think the way like our squad gets sort of depleted with Wales call-ups is quite hard to do. Um, yes, I don't know if it's just basically running out. Do you give them a really good beasting sort of Monday, Tuesday, and then maybe a bit lighter on the sort of like your Thursday, Friday sessions, just to keep the energy levels up. The other thing I'd say is probably try not to compliment. It depends. I don't know what work they've been doing in the block, and when you talk like part of the question of do all these Wales players, the ones in the Wales squad come straight back in? It's like, well, you're probably more likely to put them on the bench because they know this. You should hope they know their systems now, and depend on the cop. And then they're there as sort of a nice in case of emergencies, and you let the players who've been in camp together work on that. Yeah, I said I've no idea for how to deal with ring rust. I mean, you talk to someone who hasn't managed to play at all this season due to the injury surgeries in the child. So
I
I'm
wonder.
usually awful after first session back.
I wonder if it's an interesting thing you say about whether we start the players coming back or not. So obviously Cardiff have had Liam Belcher, Ben Thomas, and Mason Grady released to us, and I agree that they haven't been in training in the last few weeks, and I guess Van Zyl probably hasn't been able to plan on having them really up until they were released at the start of this season, the start of this week, sorry. But then on the flip side, I wonder if there's like an element of a political game to play there, where it's like if we want players to be released more often, we do then actually have to play them when they're released back to us a little bit, and you have to start them. And I speak quite a lot about like playing the game with the WRU really, that you had like if you get a bit of rope, you have to take it because they're not going to like give us multiple chances to get access to these players, and hopefully things like playing Mason Grady in certain positions, etc. Then it comes back to you where you get players released to you then as well. They think favourably of you, which wouldn't surprise me if that is how the WRU approach it, even if that is a little bit tinfoil hattish. But um, Fraser Carwin asked about Mason Grady in particular. What's your thoughts on him being released back to us? He looked quite good off the bench. What does Carwin call him? A useful bench big boy, which I think is quite a good strap line for him. Were you surprised that he is back to us?
A little bit, yeah. I thought he would after that bench performance. He would maybe be in the on the bench on the bench against Scotland or whatever. But like, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm happy to. And I think, I mean, I would be of the opinion you use those play like Ben Thomas and Mason Grady. I'd probably put them back in the team. Because if they're being released, you like they might not play for the rest of the Six Nations, and then how many weeks is that where they haven't had a proper run out? So you might as well take the opportunity. And someone like Ben Thomas is brilliant for us and a pretty key player, so I'd start him. And then Mason Grady, yeah, I think he still needs more game time because he had that a long injury layoff, and I think we he's not quite there yet in terms of back to full pace and what he can do. So I think I would play him again and get him on the ball and get him used to playing rugby again and get to back to where he can be, which is his ceiling is so high. So yeah, I'd probably get him back in the squad.
We'll go on to squad selection then, where I mean, there were some interesting chats to have here about positions because there's some which are just absolutely have to pick themselves, and then there's where we just got no other option. But there's some where there's some good depth there. So as I mentioned, Belcher, Thomas, and Grady are back. Simon Thomas confirmed from the press conference today as well that all the under 20s will be available to us if they're required for Friday night. The injury list is a little bit longer than it has been this season, but not too bad. It's got Ed Byrne in inverted commas, whoever he is now. Teddy Williams, Ben Donnell, who has suffered a setback in his injury. I think they were hoping he would be back for this game, but isn't available. Lucas de la Rua, hopefully that's not linked to that concussion he took at the end of the Ulster game. But I mean, it was a very heavy knock, so it wouldn't be surprised if it was linked to that. Tulupe Faletau not back yet either. I don't. I didn't see any clips of Ellis Bevan in training after his injury that he picked up. They put some video up of Cardiff who did a joint training session with the Dragons last week, and there was no sign of him. So he might be back, but I'll rule him out for now, just on the basis of we haven't seen him. And then Ewan Stevens is also on the injury list still. It looks like, though, in a bit of a boost, that Kieran Azarati could be available for Friday night after he had to withdraw from the Wales squad with a calf injury, but he's been back in training. And the word from the press conference today seems to be not 100%, but they're hopeful that he will be able to go. So let's go into that front row then, Fraser. We've got quite, I think, tight head wise, it is just which way round you have Azarati and Sebastian, really, if Azarati is fit. But at loose head, we've got Domachowski, Southworth, and Barrett. And then at hooker, you've got Belcher back with Evan Lloyd and Dav Hughes there. Who would be your starting trio?
I'd probably go, yeah, Sebastian to start at tight head if there's like that doubt over Azarati. I'd probably go Evan Lloyd at hooker, and I think Belcher maybe on the bench. Again, harsh on Hughes, but like, yeah, Evan Lloyd, I think, I'm a big fan of his. And then I'd probably go for Reece Barrett at loose head because he's been brilliant. I think he is our starting loose head at the moment, and his form is unreal. And he's had this rest, so there's no reason to be careful with him, I guess. So yeah, I'd go Barrett to start there as well. So yeah, Barrett, Lloyd, and Sebastian, I think.
A second row then, I mean, I've put McNally and not in there because that's sort of just like who is playing at the moment. And then back row, that's the real bare bones at the moment is back row. Not something we're used to at Cardiff, really, where we've usually got back rows coming out of our ears. But Basham, Lawrence, and Dan Thomas are the only fit senior back rowers, or fit / available senior back rowers, with so many in the senior Wales squad and a couple of injuries as well. My question then, Harley, is around sort of what do you do about cover of back row and whether there's some players who could play elsewhere. George Knott has played at 6 at times in his career. Evan Lloyd and Belcher were both back rowers coming through before switching to hooker. And then there's Tom Cottle as well at second row, who I mean, maybe could do a job at 6. He's relatively mobile. And Evan Rees is the academy back rower who's played quite a bit for the Rags. What I don't know which way you might fancy going down with whether one of them, whether you start not at 6 potentially, or whether you use one of the hookers as back row cover, or whether you just go standard with like McNally, Knott in the second row, the three fit back rowers, Thornton on the bench, and then just chuck Evan Rees on there in the 20 jersey in case of emergency.
I suppose you could. I said I'd probably go. So I think Thornton's in my 19 jersey, especially, and then maybe you go with Cottle because again, whether you decide to push six out because he at least has the experience there, or you just give him a run out at six, or almost if in case of emergencies, because you've got sort of Basham and Lawrence both play eight. Basham's probably more, you're probably looking at Basham at six as well, but and then Dan Thomas is just an out and out seven, but Basham sort of covers. So if you can chuck someone in at six, then you're fine there. Yeah, it's a bit weird, Nick. Being a Cardiff podcast talking about not having back rowers.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I'll be honest. I was fully expect if it wasn't for I was so surprised seeing both of them on the bench for the Scotland game because I was thinking, at least we'll get both. We might get both of them back.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of doing the having the hooker covering back, but I think it's going to be needs must, isn't it? Have start to have Hughes, have Evan Lloyd and Belcher on the bench, just for extra impacts, and they can all take turns throwing in. Then
one throws off the left and one throws off the right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we've got Basham, Thomas Lawrence, and then Thornton Cottle on the bench, which. I mean, there is no ideal scenario there, really, is there? But that seems pretty sensible in terms of. I would think if Evan Rees was in that 20 jersey, that he would literally only be brought on if it was injury, and at least they might throw Cottle on there as he's got a bit of impact about him at least and has made a senior debut. So
yeah, it's it'd be either injury or the game has gone one way or the other.
Well, yeah, yeah. Into the back seven, Fraser, half back. We've got Mulder and Davis battling out for the 9 jersey, Sheedy and Lloyd in the 10. Which way would you go for your half back combo?
I'd probably go Davis and Sheedy. I think that's my preference for starting 9 and 10.
I didn't do a weather forecast before, but I mean, it's rained consistently every day this year in Wales, so you assume it's going to be, if not raining at the time, at least be wet underfoot. So Davis's kick-in may well be key for that one. Centres Harley then. Ben Thomas, Steph Emmanuel, Rory Jennings as well in the 12 conversation. And then 13, you got Millard, Cornel Schmidt still there, the professor, and Elijah Evans as the young option. Ben on Twitter did send in a comment that he heard that Rico Ioane had Harry Millard posters on his wall. That sways your choice at all. But what's your centre of partnership?
I think if we're going for the whole thing of we're just picking our best players regardless of how long they've been in, I'll just stick with the Ben Thomas Millard thing and try and make the most of the fact that Leinster are quite depleted in that area. I mean, yeah, I say because the thing is, if you're looking at Ben Thomas or Steph Emmanuel, well, they've both been away, so I feel like it's horse of course you might as well go for the more experienced one there.
Mm.
If Jennings off, do we really want to put more effort into him than others? I said Cornel Schmidt. I've just haven't seen enough of him to say whether or not he's a good option there or not yet. So, I'll probably go with Millard because I don't see any reason not to play Millard.
Yeah,
he's been. We've had 3 weeks off. We're gonna have another 2 weeks off before we go down to South Africa. So, you might as well.
Fair to me. Wings then. It's probably just will be Grady and Bowen as the two fit out and out wingers. I think there is the similar thought process around Emmanuel with Bowen that they've played quite a lot and they're still quite young. But the intimation from the press conference today was that one of the under-20s would definitely be involved, and I think the most likely one of those is going to be Bowen on the wing with Stevens out, obviously Adams away, and Cabango still out as well. Although there was an encouraging Instagram video of Cabango running at sort of full tilt with his rehab coach in the last week or so. So fingers crossed we might see a bit of him at some point. But yeah, Grady and Bowen to start on the wings, and then Fraser fullback. There's I don't think there's a bad option here at all, really. But Beetham, Winnett, Matty Young still around academy wise, and then it's still mad to just chuck Lee Halfpenny in the sense of but he's still there as well. Which way? Who would you have in your 15 jersey this weekend?
I I'm thinking, did Beetham get injured in the last game? Is that right? Did he get a knock? I swear, did he come on?
I don't
Or am I
recall that.
getting
It
it
was
wrong now?
when it was due to start. I think the Benetton game, but then
Right.
withdrew on the morning of the squad. But from that video of them training with the Dragons, they were both fully involved in
Okay.
that last week. So it seems like they're both ready to go.
I think I'd go Beetham again. I don't know, it's like consistent and giving him some games that can what I love win it. But yeah, I think I'd probably stick with Beetham. He's been playing a bit more, um, and I'd like to see him out there.
Fair shout. Bench then. So we got Belcher backup hooker. We've got Thornton and Cottle with Azza as the backup tight head. Backup loose head Harley. I don't know if you got the preference between Dommer and Southworth as a bench impact.
As much as I love Dom, I think Southworth has been in better form. Yeah, I mean, I feel like when Dom has played the last few games, he just doesn't seem fit. He doesn't seem as good as himself. Like especially on the hit in the scrum, he just seems to drop that bind very very quickly, almost like his shoulder isn't quite right. And so I think stick with Southworth just because he's got the impact. He seems to be playing in form.
And then backs, I've got Mulder as the backup scrum half, and then 22 and 23. I've penciled in Lloyd and Winnett, but I'm sort of open to. I don't. There's Smith is obviously there. Elijah Evans. I don't really think Halfpenny is going to be a bench option in this game for us necessarily. Not somebody I'd necessarily look at as coming on to change things for us, and might be a little bit too optimistic to suggest we'll be so far ahead that we're just sort of shutting up shop in the last like 20 minutes or so. But yeah, Lloyd and Winnett, if we're all in agreement with that, good. So 1 to 23 then that we've got for Cardiff playing against Leinster on the weekend. We've got Rhys Barrett, Evan Lloyd, Javon Sebastian, Josh McNally, George Knott, Tame Basham, Dan Thomas, Alan Lawrence, Aled Davis, Callum Sheedy, Tom Bowen, Ben Thomas, Harry Millard, Mason Grady, Jacob Beetham on the bench, Liam Belcher, Danny Southworth, Kieran Azarati, Rory Thornton, Tom Cottle, Johan Mulder, Johan Lloyd, and Cameron Winnett, which Fraser I think is quite a decent team. You can certainly give them a go.
Yeah, I think that's a team that can get a win against Leinster. I think they're really tough and they do still have some brilliant players, but I think that team we put out there, I'm pretty pleased with it. I think there's some really strong players in each position. I don't think it's that weak. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Harley confident.
Uh, Not as confident as if we were playing the Dragons, but I feel I said on Rap that I think Cardiff will win by 5, and I think I'll stick. I'm happy to stick with that. I don't know how exciting the game is. I don't. I think I'd like a bonus point win, but I don't necessarily see it. But Leinster have struggling a bit at loose head. I think I saw one of the Irish Twittery guys saying that they're probably going to have to call up AIL because they have no fit loose heads, which
They could have had
might.
Ed Byrne.
He's an NFT, doesn't he? See, the problem is, right, is we own the right to name Ed Byrne. We don't actually own the physical Ed Byrne.
Good stuff. Right. Two bits of any other business from me. Just we mentioned on the last pod before going off, but Reese RJJB&B on Twitter is his kit competition is still going. I think the grand final's on Wednesday this week. So head over to his Twitter for that one. I can't actually remember off the top of my head whoever there was two very good kits going head to head in it.
It's the AT&T, and then I can't for the life of me remember what the other
The
one is.
AT&T and Nike or maybe or something
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
something like that. Yeah, so
Yeah, but
I said I don't
it,
often head on to that app, so
it'd be a good head to head. There's been a few shocks so far, but I think two good finalists have emerged from that one. And then we had a message from John on Facebook as well, who sends in saying, "Hi gents, in light of all the negativity surrounding regional rugby these days, just wondered if you could give a shout out to the Cardiff Rugby ticket office staff. I bought a ticket for the Ulster game before Christmas at the Arms Park, but was unable to attend due to a family bereavement. The club were fantastic about it. They credited my account with a refund, allowing me to buy a ticket for the Benetton game a few weeks ago. Just thought it'd be nice to share some positivity in the current climate. Keep up the good work with the pod. Cheers, John." Uh, Thanks, John, for your message. And yeah, I think the ticket office stuff you mostly hear about the when people are whinging, really, that something's gone wrong. But it's nice to hear some good news stories coming out of the club, and a lot of good people still there doing good work day in, day out. Gents, I don't know if there's anything more from anybody else, any other business and good. Well, just say Harley, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, always a pleasure to come back onto, my preferred podcast, right? We talk to sensible people.
Fraser, thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
And thank you at home very much for listening. We'll be back next week with a look back on that Leinster game and then maybe a look ahead to what the squad might look like over the next 6 months or so. But until then, thank you for listening. Goodbye.